Good afternoon. Today is the 13th of December and it's time for yet another very vague, not very interesting and probably quite boring vlog. If you are a channel member on the Rover 45 V6 and set Toledo tiers, then you will see this video pretty much as it goes live. Those of you who are not members on that particular system, there's no reason why you should be. That's really just for people who feel like they want to give a bit of extra support to the channel. Then you'll be seeing this a few weeks after that. So one thing I've been asked recently by people, I think it was on the walk around of the 2023 MG5 EV, was that why are new cars so expensive? Let's take that MG5 as an example. When that car was first launched in 2020, the base model was around £25,000–26,000. Now in 2022, the base model is £31,000. Admittedly, you do get more equipment and a better range than you used to. And of course, we're living in a time with inflation running about 11% in this country, so that could be something to do with it. But I think there's a bit more to it than that. Back in 2018, there were a few really quite cheap cars on the market. One of them, of course, was actually Sandero, and there was a version of the MG3 called the Explorer that was under £10,000. The Sandero was well under £10,000. Even when the new model Sandero came out, which I think was about 2020, maybe early 21, the base model Sandero was still, I think it was around £8,000 or £9,000. Today, a base model MG3 costs about £13,300 or £400, I think it is. And a base model Sandero costs about £12,500. In fact, there was a time earlier this year when the base model Sandero wasn't even on sale. The base model Kia Picanto then became Britain's cheapest car at £13,400. Now, bear in mind that the base model Picanto really doesn't have anything. It's not got alloy wheels. It's not got air conditioning. It has 2 speakers of the stereo. We're not talking about something that's in any way luxurious. Many of you, of course, that won't be a problem for you at all. You will like that kind of stuff. The base model Sandero, I think, is a bit more like that now. Base model MG3 is a bit different. That's actually got things like a touchscreen and Apple CarPlay and reversing sensors and things like that. That's not really a base model at all in a way. The one above that actually has things like reversing camera and what are called sports seats and sat nav and things like that. But not things like I think particularly need if you're just running a basic car. So there are these basic models available, but they cost a lot more. And since 2018, when I started this channel, things like the Ford Ka Plus, the Vauxhall Viva, the Suzuki Celerio, they've all been discontinued. They were the manufacturer's cheapest cars, and they were occupying mostly the city car segment. There are very few petrol city cars left. I think the only 3 are left on the market, I could be wrong about this, are the Kia Picanto, the Hyundai i10, and the Volkswagen Up. I don't think the Up's going to be on sale much longer either. So a lot of these cars are just being removed from sale. And of course that means actually the base super minis are the ones that are cheapest, but Ford's discontinuing the Fiesta. And anyway, if you buy a Fiesta, I think the base model's about £18,000 or £19,000. But we're not people in this country who actually have abandoned the idea of buying super minis. Not at all. The Vauxhall Corsa was actually the best-selling car of last year, and I think only supply issues are preventing that from possibly being the best-selling car of this year as well. It's getting close, I think it's number 2 or something. We don't all buy you know, SUVs or electric cars, which is what I think they're sort of implying in various analyses of markets that they're saying that, you know, we all just buy electric cars and SUVs. It's not really the case. The Polo's doing really well, but then a base model Corsa or Fiesta or Polo is going to cost you between £18,000 and £19,000. That's not very cheap, is it? So that's why, you know, manufacturers have introduced things like the Citroen C3U. I think it's an online exclusive for £14,000, a base model Citroen C3. None of these cars, in some ways, are that exciting to people to sort of review. Although I do have a sort of penchant in a way, because, as a lot of you know, Ian Seabrook from Hubnut Channel has been a big influence on me and everyone else, and he loves stuff like that. But he's not so fond on the modern ones. Apart from electric cars, he seems to quite like those, and I understand why. I have just filmed, you know, 2 complete reviews of brand new MG electric cars, and I enjoyed both of them. And you know, when you're talking in that sort of way about an MG4 costing £26,000 and saying, well, that's a cheap car. I mean, it is a cheap car, and it isn't a cheap car. £26,000 is almost double what that basic Kia Picanto will cost you, for example. But for an electric car, that's really, really cheap. I mean, a Renault Zoe that was sort of benchmarked as entry-level electric car for many, many years will now cost an awful lot more than that. It actually costs about the same as a basic MG5. I think it's about £30,000. One of the reasons why the Fiesta, I think, is being discontinued is because of directing the right resources into the right places, or rather just, well, financial reasons. Ford Puma is selling almost as well as the Fiesta, and only in kind of a couple of months this year has the Fiesta even entered the top 10 best-selling cars of the year. It's ironic that as the discontinuation has been announced, that actually has come back into the top 10. But the Puma's a lot better for Ford to build for people. It's not much more expensive. It's on like a PCP or you know, an HP. It's actually, you know, easier to get hold of one of those at the moment. And so the companies are doing what they need to do. You know, car manufacturers are a business. They need to make money to survive. And so if you can make a higher profit margin on a Puma, which is based on the same platform as the Fiesta, then you do that. If you're not making money on, you know, your sort of basic little cars like the Citroen C1 and the Peugeot 108 that have just been discontinued, then why continue building them? They're not the sort of biggest sellers. The biggest seller for years has been the super mini class, and in some ways it is, but the SUVs are now almost the same in terms of volume of sales. And the Citroen C3U and the Kia Picanto 1, I think, is the base model. They don't sell tons of those. They're nowhere near in the best sellers. So why are new cars so expensive? It's because the basic models that are offered by the few manufacturers that still make them don't sell very well for some reason. There's not a big queue of buyers to buy them. For November 2022, the second best-selling car was the Tesla Model Y. I think that cost about £40,000 to start off with. It's entirely due to what people are buying and the fact that if you are selling these really cheap cars, there's not a lot of profit in them. Obviously, some manufacturers like MG, Dacia, Kia, Hyundai, they are still selling them. Citroen have tried it, but it's not worked out that well for them in terms of, you know, number of ones. I don't see too many of those around. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of demand for it. And so in this weird economy where there's huge supply issues, are you going to sort of put all your efforts and resources into selling really cheap cars that don't make you a lot of profit? Or are you going to kind of put the efforts and resources into the cars that are based on similar platforms that have higher profit margins? It's just business sense. Do I bemoan the lack of these cheap and basic cars? Yes. As a former MG3 owner, of course I do. The MG3 style we had, which was the top of a range car in 2014, when the car we had was made, it cost £10,000. It was £10,000 brand new, with cruise control, parking sensors, air conditioning, DAB radio, Bluetooth, aux in, and you know, a nice little nippy engine for, you know, the price of the car. I mean, it's not the most powerful thing, 105 horsepower, but that was the top of the range one. You could buy a Style Luxe, the Style Plus model with leather seats, but for all intents and purposes, we'll say the Style was the top of the range one. The top model MG3 now costs, I think it's just under £15,000. So in 8 years, the car has gone up by 50%. Crazy. That's just one model. The MG3's been on sale for almost 10 years now, and I presume that's how they're continuing to make it. They're just making it as the fact that they actually have a presence in the market like that. But the new model that comes in, and that won't be an electric one actually on the MG3 replacement, it won't be maybe even called it, but it will be a petrol powered car, because the electric cars are just so much more expensive to make. But MG are one of the few manufacturers who've actually said, yes, we want to stay in that market segment. Toyota with the Argo X or Argo Cross I filmed earlier this year, a lot of you didn't like that car. A lot of you just said it was terrible and all that kind of stuff. But at least they've got a presence in the market segment. I think they're trying to make it something that looks like an SUV, because that's what the majority of people want to buy. It could be that many of you don't want to buy a car like that. I'm sure a lot of you on this channel don't. But that seems to be what sells at the moment. So that's probably why new cars are so expensive. It's because there is inflation, there have been component shortages. The really basic cheap cars don't seem to be selling very well anymore for some reason. And those manufacturers that offer a choice of two, like the Fiesta and the Puma, they're directing their money and resources into making the ones with higher profit margins in order to sustain themselves for the future, because, well, this silly incentive that's coming in, it's not an incentive actually, it's a complete ban that's coming in of the sale of purely combustion cars from 2030, and they have to give themselves up for that, and it costs a lot of money. So yeah, there's lots of factors, but unfortunately none of them really help in terms of, you know, going out and buying that proverbial kind of sub £10,000 new car. They're just none now, and that's a shame. It's a shame. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and I shall see you soon for more not particularly interesting vlogs. Lloyd Vehicle Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below.